The rain was coming down hard outside the little coffee shop on Pike Street, the kind of Seattle drizzle that soaks you through before you even notice. I stood under the awning, clutching a copy of my book, Shadows of Rainier, under my jacket to keep it dry. It was still surreal to see my words in print, hidden under the pen name Raven Hill. 5 years of hustling, pouring my soul into those pages, and now it was real. I was about to head inside when I saw him, Miles Carver, pushing through the crowd, his dark hair plastered to his forehead from the wet, his trench coat flapping like he'd just run a mile. My heart stopped. 5 years, and he still looked like the guy who turned my world upside down. He didn't say hi, didn't even smile. He just slid into the seat across from me at the rickety outdoor table, the one I'd claimed before the rain got bad, his hazel eyes locked on mine, intense, like he was searching for something I'd buried deep. Then he dropped the bomb. "I read your book, Lila," he said, voice low, almost drowned out by the patter of rain on the metal roof above us. "I know it's our story." I froze, the book slipping a little in my hands. Our story. The one I'd spent years trying to forget. The late-night talks, the stolen kisses, the promises that shattered when he walked down the aisle with Sophie Hargrove. I'd written it all down, disguised it as fiction, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel too real, too raw. "Why are you here, Miles?" I finally managed, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. 5 years is long enough to let go. He didn't answer right away, just leaned back, rainwater dripping from his coat onto the table, and stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I wanted to bolt, to leave him sitting there with his unspoken words, but my feet wouldn't move. Maybe it was the rain pinning me in place. Or maybe it was the part of me that never stopped wondering what could have been. It all started 6 years ago, back when I was just Lila Jackson, the housekeeper's daughter from Rainier Valley. Seattle's a city of contrasts. Tech millionaires and glass towers downtown, working folks like me and Mom scraping by in the South End. Rainier was loud and messy, bus engines rumbling past our tiny apartment, neighbors arguing through thin walls, the smell of fried chicken from the corner joint mixing with diesel fumes. Mom, Tina Jackson, raised me solo, working her hands raw cleaning houses for people who never bothered to learn her name. She'd been at it since I was a kid, and by 19, I was tagging along during summer breaks from Seattle Community College, helping her out for extra cash. That's how I ended up at the Carver house, a white mansion perched up in Queen Anne, all sleek lines and big windows overlooking Puget Sound. It was the kind of place you see in magazines, with marble floors that echoed when you walked, and chandeliers that probably cost more than Mom made in a decade. The Carvers owned half the real estate in the Pacific Northwest, office buildings, condos, you name it. Miles was the golden boy, the heir to it all, 24, and fresh out of the University of Washington with a business degree he didn't even need. The rest of the family, his mom Evelyn, his dad Henry, treated me and Mom like furniture, invisible unless something needed dusting. But Miles, he was different. I first saw him that June, sprawled on a leather couch in their library, flipping through a book like he didn't have a care in the world. I was up on a ladder, wiping down shelves, trying not to sneeze from the dust. He looked up, caught my eye, and grinned. A real grin, not the fake polite kind rich folks usually throw at you. "Hey," he said, sitting up. What's your name? I almost dropped the rag. No one in that house ever asked me anything personal. Lila, I mumbled, brushing a curl of kinky hair out of my face. Lila Jackson. Cool. I'm Miles. He nodded at the shelf I was cleaning. You ever read any of those? Dad's got some good stuff up there. I blinked. Was he serious? Not really. I'm more into novels than, whatever's here. I glanced at the titles, mostly old leather-bound things about economics and war strategy. He laughed, a warm sound that didn't fit the cold vibe of that house. Fair. I saw the bluest eye on the kitchen table last week. Yours? Yeah, I said, surprised he'd noticed. Mom sometimes let me read during breaks. You read it? Last year. Blew my mind. What'd you think? And just like that, we were talking. Me, perched on a ladder in my faded jeans and sneakers, him lounging below in a crisp button-up, debating Toni Morrison like we were in some college lit class. I told him I thought the book was sad but real. How it made me wonder what life would have been like if I'd grown up in a place like his. He tilted his head, thoughtful. I ask myself that every day, he said. What I'd be if I wasn't stuck in this. He waved a hand at the room, the books, the view, the weight of his last name. Then why don't you find out? I shot back, half joking. He grinned again, but there was something heavy in it. Easier said than done, Lila. That was the start. Over the next few weeks, he'd pop up wherever I was working, carrying laundry with Mom, polishing silver in the dining room. He'd ask about my classes, my part-time gig at Starbucks, my dreams of writing stories someday. It wasn't flirting, not at first, just talking. But I'd catch myself smiling when I saw him coming, my stomach doing little flips I tried to ignore. Mom noticed too. One day, as we folded sheets in the basement laundry room, she gave me that look. Narrowed eyes, lips tight. The air down there smelled like bleach and damp concrete, and her hands moved fast, like she was working off some worry. Lila, she said, not looking up. Be careful with that boy. I've seen how he watches you. He's just being nice, I said, folding a pillowcase too quick, messing up the edges. She snorted. Nice don't mean safe, baby. You know where we stand in their world. I didn't argue. Mom had her reasons, stories she'd hinted at, but never told me straight. Still, I couldn't shake Miles from my head. He wasn't like the rest of them. He saw me. Not the help, not the black girl from the wrong side of town, but me. And damn if that didn't feel like something worth holding on to. Back in the present, the rain kept drumming on the coffee shop awning, a steady beat that matched the thud in my chest. Miles hadn't moved, his eyes still on me, waiting for something. My book sat between us, its cover warped from the damp, a silent witness to everything we'd been through. 5 years, huh? He said finally, voice softer now. I never stopped thinking about you, Lila, not once. Not. I wanted to laugh, to tell him he didn't get to waltz back in like this, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I gripped the book tighter and said, Then why are you here now, Miles? What do you want? He leaned forward, elbows on the table, rain dripping from his sleeves. A chance to explain. That's all I'm asking. I didn't know if I had it in me to hear him out. Not after everything. But as the Seattle rain blurred the world around us, I realized I wasn't ready to walk away either. Summer 2018 crashed into Seattle like a rare heat wave, the kind that makes you ditch the hoodie and squint at the sky, wondering where the rain went. I was 19, back from my first year at Seattle Community College, juggling Mom's cleaning gigs at the Carver house with late-night Starbucks shifts. Money was tight, textbooks cost a fortune, and Mom's knees were creaking louder every day. So I tagged along to Queen Anne, hauling laundry and wiping down counters for a few bucks. That's when Miles Carver turned my quiet routine into something electric. It kicked off a week after our library chat. I was in the kitchen scarfing down a PB&J on my break when I spotted it, a beat-up copy of If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin propped against the coffee maker. A post-it stuck to the cover read, "Lila, read this. Tell me what you think. M." I glanced around, half expecting Miles to pop out with that grin of his, but the room was still, just the hum of the fridge and a whiff of lemon cleaner. My fingers brushed the note, a spark zipping through me. He'd left it for me. On purpose. I devoured it in 2 days, sneaking pages between shifts, hunched over the counter at Starbucks when the line died down. Right on cue, Miles found me Monday morning, leaning against the servant's porch railing like he'd been waiting. He was in a faded gray tee and jeans, hair messy from the breeze off Puget Sound, looking more like a guy I'd meet at a bar than the heir to Carver Realty. "So," he said, arms crossed, grinning. "What's the word?" I tossed the book onto the porch swing between us. "It's heavy. Love that raw, stuck in all that chaos. It's real as hell. Hurts, though." "Yeah," he said, stepping closer, his sneakers scuffing the wood. "Baldwin doesn't mess around, cuts deep." "Like you'd know," I teased, smirking. "What chaos you got up in that big house?" His grin faded a little, eyes flicking to the water. "More than you'd think. Family crap, expectations piling up." I nodded, not pushing it. "You're not wrong about the book, though. What's next?" He pulled Salvage the Bones from his back pocket, handing it over. "This one's wild. Bet you'll love it. That's how it started." Books kept showing up. On the dining table, tucked into a stack of towels, once even slipped under my bag in the mudroom, always with a note. "For you, M," or "This one's a ride, M." I'd tear through them, and he'd track me down, garden shed, kitchen, wherever his folks wouldn't see. We'd talk fast, voices low, about stories and dreams, the worlds we'd rather live in. It was like a secret code, those books, bridging the gap between his Queen Anne mansion and my Rainier Valley hustle. Our spot became the porch. Early mornings, before the Carvers stirred, he'd sneak out with coffee, black for me, cream for him, the air sharp with salt and pine. We'd sit close, mug steaming, the sound glinting gold through the trees. He'd vent about his dad's plans, pushing him into Carver Realty, a life he didn't want. I'd talk about writing, getting Rainier on paper like Baldwin did Harlem. One foggy morning, he set his mug down, knee brushing mine. "You ever get tired, Lila? Running so hard just to keep up?" "Every damn day," I said, blowing on my coffee. "But stopping's not an option." "You?" "Worn out," he admitted, voice low. "This..." He waved at the house. It's a cage. You're the only thing that feels free. My breath caught. I should have laughed it off, kept it light. But his eyes pinned me, steady and real. Careful, I said, half joking. You're gonna make me think you mean that. I do, he said, no hesitation. You're not like anyone here. Heat crept up my neck. I sipped my coffee, hiding the shake in my hands. Inside, something was waking up. Dangerous. Unstoppable. He wasn't just the rich kid anymore. He was Miles, and I was falling fast. Thursday, late July, the heat turned sticky, my shirt clinging as I trimmed roses in the garden. Sweat beaded on my forehead, the clippers slipping in my grip. I heard the shed door creak and turned. Miles, locking it behind him, his eyes dark, urgent. Lila, he said, crossing the small space in 3 steps. I can't shake you. You're in my head, all the time. My heart slammed against my ribs. The clippers hit the dirt. Miles, He didn't let me finish. He grabbed my hand, pulling me in, his breath hot against my cheek. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I couldn't, didn't want to. Don't, I said, voice trembling. That was it. His lips crashed into mine, hard, desperate, like he'd been holding it back too long. I kissed him back, hands fisting his shirt, the world dropping away. His arms locked around me, pressing me against the shed wall, wood rough through my tank top. It was messy, hungry, perfect. Every stolen moment exploding into this. We broke apart, gasping, foreheads pressed together. My pulse was a drumbeat, loud and wild. This is insane, I said, a shaky laugh slipping out. Yeah, he murmured, thumb brushing my jaw. But I'm not sorry. Me neither, I admitted, still clutching his shirt. For a second, it was just us. Screw the Carvers. Screw the rules. But then I heard Mom's voice, sharp through the garden. Lila, where you at? I jerked back, panic spiking. Miles squeezed my hand quick. We'll figure it out, he said fierce. I've got you. I nodded, slipping out to meet Mom, my lips still tingling. She was by the kitchen door, arms crossed, her cleaning apron smudged with dust. Her eyes narrowed, scanning me like she could see the kiss written all over my face. Lila, she said, voice low, cutting. I saw you head in there with him. You know what happened to me with a boy like that, David, up in Bellevue. Thought he'd fight for me till his daddy paid me off to disappear. I froze, her words sinking in. She'd never named him before. David. Mom. Miles isn't what? She snapped, stepping closer. Different? That's what I told myself too, till I was crying alone with nothing. You're playing with fire, baby, and it's gonna burn you. I swallowed hard, the heat of the kiss clashing with the ice in her voice. I can handle it, I said, quieter than I felt. She shook her head, turning back to the house. You think you can? That's the problem. I stood there, the garden blurring around me, Miles's promise echoing against Mom's warning. I'd crossed a line thrilling, terrifying, and there was no going back. The high from that kiss didn't last long. It couldn't. Not in a world where Miles Carver and I were on opposite sides of an invisible line drawn by money, skin, and history. August rolled in, sticky and restless, the kind of heat that made Seattle feel like it was holding its breath. I kept replaying that moment in the living room, Miles's hands on me, his voice promising we'd figure it out. But Mom's warning stuck like a splinter, and soon enough, the cracks started showing. We got sloppy after that first kiss. Not reckless, not yet, but careless in little ways. Miles would linger too long when I was wiping down counters, his fingers brushing mine as he handed me a glass he didn't need. I'd catch myself smiling at him across the dining room while Mom was upstairs, folding Evelyn Carver's silk sheets. We'd sneak out to the servants' porch at dawn, coffee mugs steaming, whispering about books and dreams like the rest of the house didn't exist. It felt like stealing time, and damn, it was addictive. But Mom wasn't blind. She'd been watching me closer since that day in the kitchen, her eyes sharp, like she could smell trouble on me. One evening, after we'd hauled the last load of laundry back to our Rainier Valley apartment, she cornered me. The place was a mess. Dishes piled in the sink, the hum of the busted AC unit rattling the window. Mom stood by the stove, stirring a pot of collards, the steam curling around her like a shield. "Lila," she said, not looking at me, her spoon scraping the pot. "I ain't dumb. I know what's going on with you and that Carver boy." I froze, halfway through unlacing my sneakers. "Mom, it's not—" "Don't lie to me," she cut in, turning now, her face tight. She was still in her cleaning clothes, faded polo, jeans worn thin at the knees. "I saw how he looks at you, how you look back. You think I don't know what that means?" I dropped my shoe, the thud loud in the quiet. "He's not like them, Mom. He's real." She laughed, short and bitter, setting the spoon down hard. "Real? Baby, I thought that once too. Back when I was your age, working for a family up in Bellevue. He was their son. Charming, sweet, said all the right things. Till his folks found out and made sure I knew my place." I stared at her, my stomach sinking. She'd never told me this, not the whole story, just bits and pieces over the years. "What happened?" "They fired me," she said, voice flat. "Told me to stay away, or they'd make sure I never worked in the city again. Left me with nothing but a broken heart and a lesson. People like us don't get to play in their world, Lila. Not without paying a price." I wanted to argue, to tell her Miles was different, but the weight in her eyes stopped me. She turned back to the stove, shoulders slumped, and I knew she wasn't mad, just scared. Scared I'd end up like her. That wasn't the only warning I got. Jade Carter, my best friend since 10th grade, had her own take. We met up that weekend at her spot, a dive bar in Capitol Hill called the Rusty Nail, where she slung drinks part-time. The place was all neon and chipped wood, hip-hop thumping through the speakers, the air thick with cigarette smoke and spilled beer. Jade leaned on the bar, wiping down a glass, her braids swinging as she shook her head at me. "You're screwing yourself, Lila," she said, loud enough to cut through the noise. "Miles Carver. Really?" I sipped my Coke, avoiding her eyes. "It's not a big deal, we're just talking." "Talking my ass," she snorted, tossing the rag down. "You've got that look, like you're already halfway gone. I've seen this movie, girl. Rich guy, poor girl, secret romance. Spoiler, it ends with you crying and him back in his mansion. I rolled my eyes, but it stung. Jade didn't mess around. She'd been burned before, some tech bro from Fremont who'd ghosted her after a month of sweet talk. He's not like that, I said, quieter than I meant. He gets me. She leaned across the bar, voice dropping. He gets you till his mommy snaps her fingers. You think he's gonna pick you over that empire? Wake up, Lila. Men like him don't ditch the trust fund for girls like us. I wanted to snap back, but her words stuck heavy and cold. Jade wasn't wrong about the odds. I knew them better than anyone. Still, I couldn't shake the way Miles made me feel. Like I wasn't just the help. Like I mattered. Was that enough to bet against everything else? Trouble didn't stop with Mom and Jade. Up at the Carver house, the air was shifting too. Evelyn Carver, Miles's mom, all sharp cheekbones and designer heels, started hovering. She'd never paid me much mind before, just barked orders about table settings or vase arrangements. But now I'd catch her watching me, her blue eyes narrowing when Miles lingered nearby. One afternoon, I was polishing the silver in the dining room, a long oak table that could seat 20, surrounded by windows showing off the sound, when she swept in, her perfume hitting me before her voice did. "Lila," she said, crisp, like she was testing the word. "You've been here a lot this summer." I kept my head down, rubbing the fork harder. "Yes, ma'am. Helping my mom," she hummed, a sound that didn't mean anything good. "Miles seems to think you're useful." "Don't get too comfortable, dear. This isn't your place." My hand stilled, heat creeping up my neck. She didn't say more, just clicked out in her heels. But the message was clear. She'd noticed, and she didn't like it. That night, I replayed it all. Mom's story, Jade's warning, Evelyn's cold stare. Miles and I were still meeting, still stealing moments, but the weight was piling up. I couldn't tell him about Evelyn, not yet. He'd just say she didn't matter, that we'd handle it. But I wasn't so sure. The next morning, he found me on the porch, coffee in hand like always. The fog was thick, wrapping the sound in gray, muffling the world. He sat closer than usual, his knee brushing mine, and grinned like nothing was wrong. "Got something for you," he said, pulling a slim book from his jacket, Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. "Figured you'd eat this up." I took it, forcing a smile. "You're gonna run out of books at this rate." "Nah," he said, nudging me. "I'll just raid Dad's library again. He won't notice." I laughed, but it felt hollow. He must have caught it, because his grin faded. "You okay, Lila? You're quiet." I bit my lip, staring at the mug in my hands. Just thinking about us. This. He set his coffee down, turning to face me fully. "Hey, whatever it is, we'll deal with it. Together." "Will we?" I asked, sharper than I meant. "Your mom's watching me, Miles. She knows something's up." His jaw tightened, but he didn't look surprised. "She's always watching. Doesn't mean she controls me." "She controls enough," I said, voice low. "And my mom, she's freaking out. She thinks I'm setting myself up to get hurt." He reached for my hand, his fingers warm against mine. I won't let that happen. I swear. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But as the fog pressed in around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. Later that day, I was in the hall, grabbing a broom from the closet, when I heard Evelyn's voice through the study door, cold and clipped. "Miles, you know what's at stake if you make a fool of this family. Don't test me." I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering, as his footsteps echoed closer. He didn't see me when he stormed out, but I saw him, face pale, fists clenched. Whatever she'd said, it wasn't good, and I knew deep down it was about me. Fall crept into Seattle slow and sharp, the air turning cold enough to bite through my jacket. Leaves piled up in the Carver driveway, a rusty mess against the white mansion. Miles and I were still stealing moments, kisses in the shed, whispers on the porch. But it was like trying to hold water in your hands. Mom's warnings, Jade's jabs, Evelyn's stares, they were everywhere, pressing in. I kept telling myself we'd beat it, that love this real could outlast anything. I was dead wrong. It started with Miles pulling back. October hit, and he got quiet. Coffee still showed up, books still slipped my way. The fire next time, there. But his grins were forced, his eyes sliding off mine. I'd push. "What's up with you?" And he'd shrug it off. "Work's crazy," or "Dad's riding me hard." I wanted to buy it, but my gut screamed trouble. Then the bomb dropped. Mid-October, Mom came home from the Carvers with a cream envelope, gold lettering glinting under our flickering kitchen light. She didn't say a word, just slid it across the table. "Miles Carver and Sophie Hargrove request your presence. November 10th, Fairmont Olympic Hotel." My hands shook as I stared at it, the words swimming. This had to be a mistake. "He wouldn't," I said, voice cracking, looking up at Mom. She sat on the couch, arms crossed, her silence heavy. "Lila," she said finally, soft but firm. "You know he would." I bolted to my room, the invite crumpled in my fist. Rainier Avenue traffic rumbling outside. I dialed Miles, fingers fumbling, chest tight. He answered quick, voice flat. "Lila, meet me. Pioneer Square Gallery. Now." I didn't want to go, but I had to hear it straight. The bus downtown felt like forever, rain streaking the windows. I hit the gallery in 15 minutes, hoodie soaked, boots slapping wet pavement. Miles was there, pacing by that jagged red painting, hands shoved in his pockets, face pale. "Tell me it's bullshit," I said, stopping short, voice sharp. "The wedding. Tell me." He wouldn't look at me, eyes fixed on the canvas. "They know," he said, low, rough. "Dad found out. About us. Went ballistic. Said he'd fire your mom, tank your scholarship. He's got pull at the college, Lila." My stomach twisted, bile rising. "So you're marrying Sophie? To save me?" He spun then, eyes blazing, red-rimmed. "It's not just that. It's a merger. Her hotels, our real estate. Dad's dying. He's playing the guilt card, saying it's his last shot to lock this down." I laughed, harsh, stepping back. "And you're just rolling over? What about us, Miles?" "I'm not," he shouted, grabbing my shoulders, voice breaking. I don't want her. Sophie's in on it. It's a damn arrangement. I'm buying time. Give me a year, I'll fix this. A year? I shoved him off, tears burning. You're putting a ring on her tomorrow, and I'm supposed to wait? You're full of shit. Lila, please. He lunged forward, hands reaching, but I ducked, backing toward the door. No, I said, voice shaking. You made your choice. We're done. I ran out into the rain, his voice calling after me, fading fast. I didn't stop. Bus back to Rainier, tears mixing with the wet on my face. He'd picked them, his family, his world, over me, and it hurt like hell. The wedding was the next day, and I shouldn't have gone. Should have stayed home, let Mom fry chicken and tell me I'd survive. But I needed to see it, needed the truth to sink in deep. I took the bus downtown, old black dress clinging from the damp, and slipped into the Fairmont Olympics back row, half hidden by a pillar. The place was packed, white orchids, soft lights, a string quartet humming. Miles stood at the altar, tuck sharp, face blank. Sophie floated down the aisle, blonde and perfect in a gown that screamed money. Everything I'd never be. I do, he said, voice steady, empty. I do, she echoed, her smile thin. The crowd clapped, and something in me shattered. Sharp, final. I stumbled out before they turned, rain hitting me hard, soaking through. I didn't care. The fairy tale was dead, and I'd been a fool to believe in it. Mom was waiting when I got home. Door cracked open, the smell of stew drifting out. She didn't say anything, just pulled me in, arms tight as I broke down, sobbing into her shoulder till my throat burned. I'm done, I rasped, pulling back. He's gone. You're enough, she said, wiping my tears. Always. That night, I erased him. Texts, pics, his number. Gone. The books he'd given me hid a box, taped shut, shoved under my bed. But the pain stayed, clawing at me, begging to get out. So I wrote. At first it was just rage, scribbles on napkins at Starbucks, midnight rants on my laptop. Then it grew. A story, our story, twisted into something I could control. A girl from Rainier, a boy born rich, a love crushed by the weight of his world. I called it Shadows of Rainier, poured every cut and bruise into it, hid behind the name Raven Hill. Sent it to publishers expecting nothing. 3 years flew by. I graduated, snagged a job editing at a small press in Belltown, crappy pay but steady. Mom retired after some mystery cash. Miles probably. Hit her account. I got a tiny apartment downtown, all creaks and leaks, but mine. Dated a little, kept it light. The scar was there, tough, but sore. Shadows faded to a memory, a box I didn't open. Then, last month, my phone rang. Nia Patel, editor at Cascade Books, voice buzzing. Lila, your book, Shadows of Rainier. It's a damn gem. Real, raw, hits hard. We're publishing it. I nearly dropped the call. You're kidding. Nope, she laughed. This could shake things up. Class, race, all of it. You ready to own it? Tell the world it's yours? I froze, the truth of it sinking in. Maybe. Let me think. Don't wait too long, she said. This story's too good to hide. I hung up, staring at the manuscript on my desk, ink smudged from my hands. It was out there, my heart, my fight, and part of me wondered if Miles would ever see it, if he'd know what he'd lost. That's where I was when he showed up, outside that Pike Street coffee shop, rain dripping, shadows in my grip. Miles sitting there, saying he knew, dragging me back to a past I'd buried. I didn't know what to say, but one thing was clear. The story wasn't over yet. The rain didn't let up that April. It just kept coming, turning Seattle into a gray blur of puddles and fog. I stood outside that Pike Street coffee shop, Miles's words still ringing in my ears. I know it's our story. 5 years since he'd married Sophie Hargrove. 5 years since I'd locked him out of my life. And now here he was, cracking it all open again. I should have walked away, told him to shove his explanations where the sun don't shine. But I didn't. I said I'd hear him out. Tomorrow, at the gallery in Pioneer Square. Dumb move, Lila. The next day, I showed up early, my boots squeaking on the gallery's worn wood floor. The place smelled like old paint and coffee, the walls lined with canvases nobody bought. I paced by that red line painting we'd stood under years ago, my copy of Shadows of Rainier tucked under my arm. Miles walked in 10 minutes late, trench coat dripping, eyes locked on me like I was the only thing in the room. "You look good, Lila," he said, voice soft, like he was testing the waters. "Cut the small talk," I snapped, crossing my arms. "You said you'd explain. So explain." He nodded, running a hand through his wet hair. "Okay, after the wedding, after Dad died, I took over Carver Realty. Sophie and we've got our own lives. Separate. Always have. She's with someone else, has been for years. The marriage, it's just business." I snorted, bitterness bubbling up. "Great. So you're a martyr now? Married her to save me, saved her too? Spare me, Miles." "It's not like that," he said, stepping closer. "I built something, the Carver Hope Foundation. Education, housing for kids like you were. It's my way out, Lila. I've been waiting, hoping you'd give me a shot to make this right." I stared at him, the book heavy in my hands. 5 years, Miles. You think you can just waltz back in with a foundation and a sob story? "No," he said, voice breaking. "But I think we're worth it. I never stopped loving you." I opened my mouth to argue, but a flash went off, sharp, bright, from the corner of the room. I spun around, catching a guy in a hoodie ducking out the side door, camera in hand. Miles cursed under his breath, bolting after him. But the guy was gone, lost in the Pioneer Square crowd. "Who the hell was that?" I demanded, heart racing. Miles's face went pale. "I don't know, but if he's got photos..." He didn't finish. Didn't need to. If those pics hit the tabloids, Miles Carver, married CEO with some random black girl from Rainier Valley, it'd be a mess. For him, for me, for everything. The mess found me faster than I expected. 2 days later, I was at the Rusty Nail with Jade, trying to patch things up. We hadn't talked much since the wedding. She'd called me a fool one too many times, and I'd stopped calling back. The bar was packed, rap blasting, the air sticky with sweat and cheap liquor. Jade leaned on the counter, pouring me a Coke, her braids tied back tight. "So?" she said, sliding the glass over. "He's back, huh? Saw you two trending on X, some blurry pic from a gallery. You're a damn idiot, Lila." I groaned, rubbing my temples. "It's not what you think. He's just... Save it," she cut in, voice hard. "You're digging the same hole again. What's it gonna take for you to learn?" "He's not the same guy," I said, leaning forward. "He's trying, Jade. For real this time." She laughed, cold and sharp. "Trying? Girl, he's married. You're out here playing mistress while he tries? I'm done watching you crash and burn." "Jade," I started, but she held up a hand. "Nah. I love you, Lila, but I can't do this. You're on your own." She turned away, serving some guy down the bar, and that was it. 5 years of friendship, gone. I left the Coke untouched, the sting of her words cutting deeper than I'd admit. It got worse. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Nia Patel, my editor. "Call me. Now," I did, pacing my tiny Belltown apartment, the hardwood creaking under my socks. "Lila," she said, voice tight, "we've got a problem. Carver Realty's lawyers sent a cease and desist. They're saying Shadows of Rainier defames their family, exploits private matters, they claim. They want us to pull it." My stomach dropped. "What? It's fiction. They can't." "They can try," she said. "They've got money, connections. I'm fighting it, but they're pissed. You need to decide. Push forward or back off." I sank onto my couch, the springs groaning. "I can't back off, Nia. This book, it's me." "I know," she said softer. "But heads up, they're coming for you. Hard." She wasn't kidding. That afternoon I got an email, formal letterhead, Carver Realty logo glaring at me. "Cease publication of Shadows of Rainier immediately, or face legal action impacting you and your family, including Tina Jackson's financial security." My hands shook as I read it. Mom's retirement fund, the one Miles probably set up, was on the line. They weren't just threatening me, they were dragging her into it. I called Miles, fury boiling over. He picked up quick, voice tense. "Lila, what's wrong?" "Your family," I spat. "They're trying to kill my book, threatening Mom's money. You know about this?" "No," he said sharp. "I swear I didn't. That's Evan, Sophie's brother. He's been sniffing around, pushing buttons. I'll handle it." "Handle it?" I laughed bitter. "Like you handled us?" "I'm done, Miles. Done." "Lila, wait." I hung up, tossing the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a crack, but I didn't care. Everything was unraveling. Jade, the book, Mom's safety, and Miles was tangled in the middle of it. I met Nia that night at a diner off Aurora Avenue, neon buzzing outside, the smell of greasy fries thick in the air. She slid into the booth across from me, her dark eyes serious behind her glasses. "They're not bluffing," she said, sipping her coffee. "Evan Hargrove's behind it, Sophie's little brother. Word is he saw you and Miles at the gallery, got the pics. He's got a vendetta, wants to protect the Hargrove name." "Great," I muttered, staring at my untouched burger. "So what now?" "We fight," she said, leaning in. "This book's too good to bury. But it's your call, Lila. You ready to go public, claim it as yours, or let them win?" I didn't know. My head was spinning. Miles's promises, Jade's rejection, Mom's future hanging by a thread. Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a new email. Another Carver letter, this time shorter. Withdraw the book by Friday, or we proceed. No further warnings. Friday was 2 days away. I looked up at Nia, throat tight. They're gonna destroy me, aren't they? Not if we're smart, she said, fierce. But you've got to choose, Lila, fast. I left the diner, rain pelting my face, the city lights smearing into streaks. Miles's voice echoed in my head. I never stopped loving you. But it was drowned out by Jade's, by Mom's, by the Carver's threats. I'd built something with that book, something mine, and now it was slipping away. Worse, it felt like there was no way out, no way to fight without losing everything. The rain didn't stop, and neither did the pressure. It was Thursday night, less than 24 hours before the Carver's deadline to kill Shadows of Rainier. My Belltown apartment felt like a cage, rain streaking the windows, the radiator hissing, my laptop glowing with that damn cease and desist email. Jade was gone. Mom's future was on the line. And Miles? Hell, I didn't know what to think about him anymore. I told Nia I'd decide by morning whether to fight or fold, but every choice felt like a trap. I was digging through a closet for a sweater, something to shake the chill, when I found it. A battered shoebox I'd shoved away years ago. The tape was peeling, the cardboard soft from damp. I hadn't touched it since 2018, since I'd packed up Miles' books and swore him out of my life. Curiosity, or stupidity, got the better of me. I ripped it open, and there they were. If Beale Street Could Talk, Americana, all the paperbacks he'd left me. But underneath, something else. A stack of envelopes, yellowed and creased, tied with a rubber band. My hand shook as I pulled one out. The postmark read, November 2018, a week after his wedding. No return address, just my name, Lila Jackson, in his messy scrawl. I tore it open, heart pounding. Lila, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't blame you if you burn it. I messed up, worse than I can say. The wedding, it's not what you think. Sophie's got her own secrets, her own love. This is a shield for us both. I'm starting something, a foundation, Carver Hope. The L is for you. I'll fix this, I swear. I love you. Miles. There were more, dozens, dated over 5 years, one from 2019. Dad's gone. I'm in charge now, but it's a mess. I can't leave yet, not till it's safe for you. Another, 2021. Bought a place in Oregon by the sea. It's yours if you'll have it. I miss you every day. The last one, from 6 months ago. I saw your book in a store. Knew it was us. If you ever forgive me, I'm here. I sank to the floor, letters spilling around me. He'd been writing all this time, letters I'd never gotten, lost in some mail glitch or buried by my own stubbornness. Every word hit like a punch. Regret, hope, love he hadn't let go of. I'd spent years thinking he'd walked away clean, but he'd been fighting his own war, waiting for me. Tears blurred the ink, and I didn't know if I was mad or relieved or just broken all over again. Friday morning, I met Miles at the coffee shop on Pike Street. The rain had eased to a drizzle, the city waking up slow. He sat across from me, hands wrapped around a mug, looking like he hadn't slept. I found your letters, I said, voice steady despite the storm inside. All of them. Why didn't you tell me? He blinked, surprise flashing across his face. I sent them. Figured you didn't want to hear it. Or they never made it. They didn't, I said, sliding the stack across the table. Till now. He stared at them, fingers brushing the top envelope. God, Lila, I thought... Yeah, I cut in. Me too. But what's this about Oregon? A foundation? You've been planning this? He nodded, leaning forward. Sophie and we've got an understanding. She's with her partner, Liv, has been forever. The marriage keeps her family off her back, keeps the business solid. I've been building Carver hope, scholarships, housing for kids like you were, and the house. He pulled a photo from his wallet, a small cedar cabin perched on an Oregon cliff, waves crashing below. It's ours if you want it. No more hiding. I took the photo, the edges worn from his touch. And Evan, your mom, they're trying to bury my book, bury me. Evan's a jackass, he said, jaw tight. He's pushing this, not me. Mom's just following his lead. I'll stop it, Lila. I've got enough pull now. Dad's gone, the merger's done. They can't touch you. I wanted to believe him, wanted it so bad it hurt. But trust was a fragile thing, and mine was still cracked. I've got till tonight, I said. Nia's waiting. I'm either pulling the book or going all in. Then go all in, he said, fierce. I'll stand with you. That night was the launch. Cascade Books had rented a space in Capitol Hill, a loft with brick walls and string lights. Nia had pushed hard, turned it into an event. Shadows of Rainier, unmasked. I'd told her yes that afternoon, heart in my throat, betting everything on this. The room buzzed, reporters, book folks, a crowd I didn't expect. I stood by a table stacked with copies, my name, Lila Jackson, blazing on a banner overhead. Nia found me first, grinning wide. You ready, rock star? This is your night. Ready as I'll be, I said, smoothing my dress, a simple black thing I'd splurged on. They're still coming for me, Nia. Let 'em try, she said, fierce. We've got your back. The clock hit 7, and I stepped to the mic, knees shaking. Hey, I'm Lila Jackson, I started, voice wobbling. This book, it's my story. Not all of it's pretty, but it's true. About love, about losing, about fighting when the world says you shouldn't. The crowd leaned in, cameras flashing. I spotted Miles near the back, in a dark sweater, eyes locked on me. Then the door banged open. Evan Hargrove, suit crisp, face twisted with fury, a lawyer-looking guy trailing him. Stop this, Evan barked, loud enough to hush the room. This is slander, libel, you name it. The Carvers and Hargroves won't stand for it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I froze, but Miles pushed forward, planting himself between me and Evan. Back off, he said, voice steel. This ends now, Evan sneered. You're a disgrace, Miles. Cheating on my sister with her? Sophie's fine with it, Miles shot back. Ask her yourself. Sophie stepped in then, cool, blonde, unflappable, Liv at her side. He's right, Evan, she said, loud and clear. Miles and I have our deal. Let it go. Evan's jaw dropped, the lawyer shifting awkwardly. The crowd buzzed, phones out, recording. Miles turned to me, nodding. "Finish it, Lila." I took a breath, gripping the mic. "This book's mine. Our story. Messy, real, ours. I'm not hiding anymore." I looked at Evan, at the room, and I'm not scared. Applause broke out, drowning Evan's sputters as he stormed off. Miles stayed, clapping louder than anyone, a grin breaking through. Later, he found me by the signing table, the crowd thinning. "You did it," he said, voice thick. "I'm proud of you." "Yeah," I said, meeting his eyes. "We did." That was 2 years ago. Life didn't get simple after that night. It's still a tangle. Miles didn't divorce Sophie. They keep the public front, a polished partnership that keeps the wolves at bay. Evan backed off, licking his wounds. Jade and I patched things up, slow, over beers at the Rusty Nail, her admitting she'd missed me. Mom warmed to Miles too, watching him chop onions in her kitchen, learning her recipes with a laugh. We've got the Oregon house now, a cedar escape by the sea, where the waves crash and the air's clean. Miles splits his time. Seattle for Carver Realty, the coast for us. I've written more, novels that dig into the grit of life, critics calling them raw as hell. Sophie and Liv are friends now. Their own quiet love a mirror to ours. It's not a fairy tale. There are whispers, tabloid drones buzzing now and then. Days I wonder if half a life is enough. But then Miles pulls me close on that cliff, the ocean roaring below, and I know we're writing this story together, flaws and all. Love's messy, imperfect, but it's ours, and that's what counts.